Okay, before we get into this, I want to be very clear about what this series is and what it isn't. This is not gossip. This is not accusation, and this is not a rush to conclusions. Okay. This is going to be an open source investigative breakdown of a missing persons case that, based on publicly available facts and some of my intuitive analysis, does not necessarily present as a standard internal family situation. Now, the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie is being framed publicly as a personal or domestic matter, but when you step back and analyze the timeline a bit, the language used by family members, the handling of the scenes, and the speed at which certain decisions were made, it just started to paint a different picture for me personally. And I'm starting to think that I'm seeing how it's all going to emerge. But this feels less like a family crisis and more like some form of like containment as far as the media is concerned. So, in this series, we're going to do two things at the same time. First, we're going to walk through the facts that are confirmed and reported. Second, we're going to conduct a spirit led investigative reading. Okay, that's what we do over here. Make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button over here because number one, we need to get this message out to as many people as possible. So, the more awareness and focus on a conclusion for this, the better. Also, um, there's going to be some questions that are very focused, controlled, but I want it to be set up to where we can understand what may be happening beneath the surface, okay? Behind the scenes. So I'm not here to tell you what to think. I am here to just lay out patterns and let you decide whether this case is being presented honestly. Okay. It feels like this one is just being managed. So, um, I wanted to start with what should happen in a standard missing persons case. Now, you expect urgency, perseverance, um, preservation even of like evidence, limited access to the scene, emotionally unfiltered like communication from those closest to the individual, whoever's like the person of interest, in Nancy's case, we see kind of these deviations almost immediately, which is so weird to me. The scene itself was not preserved in a way that aligns with best practices. There were multiple re entries into the home. A security camera was reportedly removed yesterday. Blood was observed at the front door, yet its ownership remains publicly unresolved. We've also been hearing some conversation about like deliveries, Amazon truck, packages outside, a man possibly retrieving mail, wearing blue gloves, retrieving mail out of the mailbox earlier in the day. So basically, what I'm seeing here is that these are not just minor oversights, these are decision points. Okay. At the same time, public communication from the family carries a tone that is calm. It's also very symbolic and oddly strategic. So, we're going to break that down in the next episode. But taken together, these elements do raise a central question. Are we really dealing with a disappearance? Or is this a situation that like requires rapid narrative control? Because my first instinct when I pulled this first spread of cards that you see here as just the overall pre-shuffle, um I feel like this may be a national security issue, and I don't want to speculate too much since we still are to the minute getting new updates. But at this stage, I am not concluding what happened. I'm concluding that the official framing may not match the operational signals that we're seeing. So, this is where I'm going to bring in the controlled intuitive lens, not to replace the facts, but to basically interrogate any gaps that we're hearing or not hearing. in this story right now. Okay. So, um, if you are watching this video with the intention of following this story, thank you for reading or listening to the reading up to this point. I want you to be aware that our collective attention to this should be balanced and neutral above all. But I know that most of us want to see, a positive outcome. However, at this stage, it does feel a little um dim. Okay. So we're not going to be asking for names, accusations, or assumptions. We're just going to ask like foundational questions. So let's just get into this board though so far. So I wanted to pull up this so that you guys can see because I do feel like I have to mix before I start being on camera um more frequently like I was on the other channel. I want to kind of like establish a kind of flow here. I still am fine tuning all of everything that I want to do here. So I'm trying to bang out as much stuff as possible while also being efficient and not burning out. Okay. So um the first card that you see here, the mysterious sudden death, this is where I feel like this is clarifying. Everybody's trying to figure out what actually is going on because we do feel like an 84-year-old who does have a pacemaker. She may have some type of other condition along with this heart condition. It has something to do with the state of how maybe she also feels because now everybody's in, been talking about the subscription to the app and that not being paid so it doesn't record, it just monitors. So if she was looking and within range, she could be tracked in that way. So they do have GPS, but I wonder if there are things that can also trace the location with it out without it being necessarily directly from the pacemaker. So maybe perhaps through her Wi-Fi or phone carrier. Maybe I'm not thinking about this correctly, but either way, poison detected in the blood. I don't know if she took something or was given something, administered something, but this could also have something to do with her medicine in general. Poison medicine kind of like is a form of poison, even if it is beneficial to you. So there could be that. Some of these cards, again, I have to be careful about being very discerning about what I take literally and figuratively, but I also invite you into the conversation if you are picking up on other things as we move along. Okay, so the wrong person convicted, this could be where it's like we are being misguided into looking at certain people maybe close to the family, and I feel like because that's been like the speculation, like maybe it's Tommaso, the brother-in-law, slash son-in-law. He apparently was some type of, this is a rumor allegedly, that he was a gambler, maybe not doing his best. I think he also works near or not too far from Nancy's home. But again, I think they all live really closely to within range of each other, so that may not do anything. The fact that Nancy was last seen in the first reading that I did, please go back to that if you would like to get more details. When I opened up the details about her being home, not going to church, um, and going to online church, having not attended, like going in with other people physically since COVID. So why was that a rumor? Was that just misquoted? Did somebody, was that a source who was not fully informed? Or did that come from someone within? Was that Annie? Because that's also strange. There's been a question about why would you send your 84-year-old um mother home, but they're not that far from each other, so maybe that is part of the reason why they did that. But some people have been speculating that whether or not she actually had gone home after dinner, So there's that. Okay. So no forced entry yet signs of struggle. This came out in the first reading. So I know again, this is exactly like confirmation for that. So there was a discussion early on about whether it was forced entry or not. They said something about the back door being open. The front door was found with droplets of blood on the porch, and things pretty much, I mean, from what we know, didn't seem um too out of place, but I think there was something about like signs of like stuff being moved around or something like that. So unusual jewelry. So somebody could wear unusual or very distinctive jewelry or have a very distinctive piece of jewelry. So I feel like maybe we need to be keeping an eye out for honestly anybody that could be, maybe they are signaling something about Nancy's piece of jewelry or a gift she got from Savannah, maybe something that Annie is wearing. There's also a lot of criticism about the siblings, their interaction and connection. We're going to get into that also in another reading. But the fact that they looked um, different from one frame to the next, we have these two ransom videos and responses here, and there's something going on with that. So maybe there's, criticism about pieces of jewelry or appearance. Vanity was a question that was brought up. So we have private cloud holds truth. Again, this goes back to what I was saying about the pacemaker, the app, just, the pinging and all of that. Emergency call history. Dead also came out, which is crazy. So in the first reading, it was more so I opened up with it felt as though she was still living at that current moment, but there was a shift in the energy to where towards the end of the grid it did feel like, but she's still living, but for now, but these certain things could have a different outcome. So I didn't want to necessarily declare it. However, this card is present, so take with that what you will. We have someone also may be making a phone call um, to authorities about finding, you know, someone, something unalived. Okay, so now let's get into these other clarifier cards that came out. Okay, so I'm just gonna get into some of them and then we'll also do some other shuffles. Okay, so High Society Elite came out, and then we have federal versus state prosecution conflicts. So this may have something to do with like if we find a person in the sentencing or justice in general, whether or not this is the case for the feds or for the state. I know the FBI was present. Cash Patel is said to be coming in tomorrow morning, so that should be interesting. There's also protests going on in Minnesota right now. Protests were recently going off in Iran. A conversation to a Honduran president was recently done at Mar-a-Lago, talking about being able to strike up a deal about accepting um refugees or people to another country. Again, I'm trying not to um jump around too much, but these stories I do feel like have some interesting correlations to even the Epstein file drop and all of that. And so we're starting see how the news cycle is currently flooded after there being such silence, for the last couple of weeks. I think we've had a few things here and there to distract and to kind of like talk about, but now it's kind of like in your face. So there was also a discussion about some cartel that could possibly be involved in this situation, so that could be kind of interesting. Now this is where it kind of got dark, these clarifier cards right here. So body disposed, hidden postmortem, then we have the political leader, and then we have found deceased in a strange location. So the political leader, this could be talking about our personal president or a president from another country or some correlation there, which I don't know. So I stand beside my loved ones. This is where I started to feel like this is confirmation that she is no longer with us. I think that's the general consensus. I think everybody has kind of like gotten the sense that she's no longer here. Again, be mindful about how you consume this story. This is something just to observe, because even adding too much emotional um, currency to this story, which carries a lot of emotional hooks, you just need to be mindful of, your energy. So there's restricted property zones right now. It's funny that that came out because in the pre-shuffle of the original grid, there was um mention about oh my god, I just lost my train of thought. Something about the property. Oh gosh. Okay, so let me move on. Spirit says this was preventable. So again, something went left. Kidnapping gone wrong came out in the first reading. Again, go back to that and see if there's anything else that I missed that may correlate with this, since this is kind of like technically part two. But we have last moment was peaceful, which, that could be kind of debatable. It's like maybe she was at peace with the possible outcome of her dying. She may be, you know, like they mentioned, celebrating her life on this earth. And this was more so about, you know, something coming to a close. Everybody keeps talking about closure. Closure is very significant. I think we'll get confirmation. Possibly, this is just a guess. Um, I feel like we may get some confirmation on this maybe tomorrow, February 9th, especially since cash is coming in. But nine is a number of completion. So there could be some closure or ending. Okay. Recently threatened. Okay. So there's something here that could be either just, hinting to the current situation, which we know is obviously a ransom, hostage, abduction, kidnapping. I don't know how you really classify if there's are those all different terms? I'm gonna look up all of the difference of those different words, because I do feel like they hold slightly different variations of connotation, if that makes sense. So long coat or trench is here. There was also somebody who said something about a dark hooded figure. Okay. Evidence destroyed by fire. That I don't know. But I don't know why I'm picking up on the Clinton fire. So remember a couple of years ago, before all of this, Hillary Clinton's office or back room in her house or something, like um was like blown up, but it was just like the corner of it. And I can't remember if this had to do with the Hunter Biden laptop stuff or if this was before that. But either way, Hillary was set to do something, or somebody had brought something out. If this was the Pizzagate thing, maybe if this was like the Podesta and original WikiLeaks drop, this could also be what I'm referring to. Somebody correct me, because all of this has been going on, and I've been following this very closely for 10 plus years, but it's only recently that I've started a channel and started to um find more interest in ways of sharpening my intuitive abilities through doing these kind of deep dives and investigative journalism style readings. Okay, so what else? I think now we have a lot of people, or maybe this may be a part of the stage um in the investigation, where authorities are trying to figure out or narrow down what the or who the participants are. Okay, so now let's get into asking some current questions about stuff. Secret trial held behind closed doors. Okay, this does not feel like the future. This kind of feels like now. I even was in my mind's eye reviewing again Savannah's look the second time around, when she mentioned, "We will pay, our mom was valuable, we want peace." Those were all coded phrases that I think are supposed to hit certain frequencies for the general public as well. So it feels also that the siblings almost look like they're being held hostage. Now, that may not be the literal case, but that is just how I'm saying their energy comes off. They even look tied up and twisted in a weird way, like the way Savannah is in between them, kind of planked, but she's got her arms crossed as though she started maybe touching one and then came to the other. So maybe she does gravitate towards one sibling or have a better relationship with one rather than the other. Someone let me know in the comments if there's anything that you've heard as far as an update of the relationship of the siblings. Are they estranged? Are they close? Do they frequently, attend each other's events, family milestones, all of that? All of that is important. Okay. So I do feel like behind closed doors, there is somewhat of like, you know, a pins and needles situation, or um everybody is a suspect, or that feeling of maybe suspecting someone. We have death faked, person in hiding. Okay, death faked, person in hiding. This could be another, motive that's being drummed up right now. Either a rumor, or this could even be the thought. If there's another person involved, but again, I feel like they keep trying to make us be settled on the idea that this is a domestic issue, because I think if they confirmed that it were an international, global kind of issue, that would create mass hysteria, which is what they do not want. Um, we just had a storm, Iran. We still have Ukraine going on. We still have Russia and China looming somewhere in the background. We have Saudi Arabia working with the other pieces of the Middle East against us. They're not accepting our entry into using their military bases to support Iran, or, whatever that situation is. So we have a lot going on. We have alley or street corner. Um, hmm. I do feel like, again, that she's gonna be found like in a weird place. I know that sounds so crass, but it does kind of give that. Now, there's an offshoot of cards that flew out that I wasn't sure if this is gonna be like the main part of the conversation as far as her case, or if this is another related case. Because again, we're kind of picking up on the energies of a few missing persons. We have Nathan Murray Smith, who I did a reading on, but I want to do a follow up since he's been found. He is the American rapper Little John's son. Then we also have the young boy. I think he's from Rhode Island or New York. Someone in the comments let me know. He's the I think he was 12. Again, I could be making that part up, but I know it's a little boy who was on Roblox who met with someone who's currently missing. So it almost feels like they're putting us on the timeline with like unsolved mysteries. Remember those stories? And then like America's Most Wanted. That's what it feels like. That timeline, the 80s, 90s, whenever that show was super popular, and us, the first crime detective stories that brought out our inner sleuth, I guess. Which I don't know how I resonate with that word. Like, I don't know how I've heard people refer to themselves as sleuths, and I'm like, why do they say sleuth? Because it seems too close to sloth. But anyway, I digress. Um, there is something about poisoning coming up again. So her blood system and the medicine, like I said, the medicine could be referred to as the poison. Okay. And it may not just be that serious. Now we have movie set or studio. This card didn't make sense to me, but it totally makes sense to me now, because we're at the scale of, if she had come back alive, and if had it been like earlier, I mean, honestly, because it's Savannah, this story, regardless off top, is going to be a movie, a documentary, an expose, a breakdown, a file release. Like, it's going to go to that level. So Of course, there's going to be movie sets, studio. People are writing it now. People are scripting it now. It's already been scripted. Okay. So, window tinted vehicle, there was a mention of a van, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to keep up with any of the tips that I'm hearing because there's a lot of people with boots on the ground who are literally there. I know JLR, that guy, he has been streaming all day, all weekend, whatever. And we have another card here. Look in my journal. She may have written something down. We have delivery truck out again. Okay. So there is something about a delivery truck. I don't know if people were trying to get something delivered to them or if it's just the appearance of the delivery truck in general making deliveries that is, a mention, and people are speculating what has been dropped off because there were some people saying something about packages being in the front. Um, as would be expected, but the connotation is almost as if like maybe they had been out for a while or something or longer than a day. That's what it felt like. But again, I don't know. Execution style killing and decapitation. This is when I was like, I don't know if I'm picking up on this or if this is just like another conversation trying to come in. A child saw everything. Now, a child saw everything. Take that as it resonates. She has three children. So there could be something involving one of these children. Um, and that's what it's referring to. Car with unique stickers. Car with unique stickers. So we also know that they went back to the house yesterday or the day before yesterday, to retrieve Annie's car. Now, I'm assuming, because this is weird though, because they mentioned something about Tommaso and Annie possibly not being married, or maybe they were separated, estranged, whatever the case is. There seemed to be some type of rift. I don't know if they still live with each other, but again, maybe they do. Either way, I'm assuming they only have one car, because if that's the case, why, if you're blaming Tommaso, why would you be taking Annie's car? Do they have one car? Do they have more than one car? That's what I'm trying to say. Saying this shit out loud as I'm saying, what's going on. We also have dawn. So before dawn, right after dawn, at dawn, something could be significant. Dawn could be significant as far as like daylight, losing time, losing light. People could be concerned about losing light because maybe they're close to something, close to making something happen, close to finding something. They're losing light though. Losing light. And see, that's where I'm picking up again on Nancy's energy possibly, dwindling down. Gunshot residue present. Gunshot residue present. There may be some, also a mention of like a suicide. If they Now, in the event that this is a national security issue, they are going to have to use someone as a patsy. And that patsy may be brought to justice, but be unalived for the sake of being able to have a person, like a fall person. So we have crypto Bitcoin ransom. I just made this card to refresh um, the crime deck. So the fact that it flew out when the deck has been fully shuffled is crazy. We have car accident, foul play involved. Car accident. So something is significant about that fucking car. Okay, so we need to get a better visual of that car. In the first reading, I picked up on something like a broken headlight. I don't know if they accidentally hit this lady, but then again, I'm like, in what world do you accidentally do something and then your first response is, oh, well, let me hide her as opposed to call 911, So either way, that wouldn't be very interesting. Case sealed or classified. See, again, don't know what this is about. Case sealed or classified. That's what they're either going to do with this case or something like that. I don't know. White collar crime is here. We have procedural updates. So this is what's incoming. A boat could be significant. or some type of watercraft. Buried alive. Oh my God, I was listening to some crazy stream because in between like my downloads, I'll kind of like take a break and then like watch some more news headlines, collect from different media to see, what people are coming up with as far as conclusions. Um, and there was somebody who mentioned her speculation that they could have buried her in an open grave and put a casket on top of her. I was like, what the fuck? Like the thought of that in general, everybody in the chat was like, we need to go look at the funeral homes in that lady's state because the way a mind can drum up something so crazy like that, it's like, okay, you're letting your mind go a little too far, but that is an interesting point. I never thought about that. I never considered that, all of the ways that you could possibly conceal a body that you don't want to be found. And I feel like that's another reason why people want closure, because if she is in fact deceased, nobody wants to get her in the desert, mummified and fried to leather. You know what I mean? Like to where evidence of who may have had her goes, tampered with or in some way, or just leaves the scene. Like, you know what I mean? Because she's already been moved. It's too many factors. We already know, we can already speculate a few things. Okay, so slow acting poison is here again. So there is something about her medicine, but we know that. Or she could have been given medicine or the wrong medicine. I don't know. Incoming prep, or no, incoming perp walk. Day one. Okay, so a gun is here again. Something significant about the last 24 hours. There could be some new details. Also, earlier, I had all of these. This reading specifically is based off of the details that I gathered in my downloads that I got from today, Sunday, February 8th at around 3:30 p.m. this afternoon. But when I finally decided to go back and open up the reading, there was something that came to me about 8:08 p.m. today. So maybe there'll be something that gets added to the timeline as far as 8:08. I know that they could be trying to like narrow down the intricacies and fill in any gaps as far as the timeline is concerned. So um what else? Um 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 let's see. We have military style execution. Okay. Now I'm thinking, could she be found burned? I mean, now that could just be referencing again what I said about being in the desert, or she could literally be found burned. A hot, dry place is a great place to start a fire or create a little brush fire, whatever the case is. So there could be that. Again, so I'm trying not to get too dark, but let's try to steer the questions again. So is Nancy Guthrie's disappearance being classified as a voluntary absence, an external abduction, or an event initiated by a third party that may be escalated? Okay, we have, oh, intent, and then we have the spouse partner. Okay, so, but the intent card coming out, that's kind of crazy because it came out upright in the beginning, and then when the spouse card came out, um I picked them up and intent was upside down. Now, what did I just say about them possibly using Tommaso as the person? Now, personally feel like there may be something significant about the guy who faked being the Bitcoin ransom guy. And there's also something significant about if they catch someone. So if they catch someone, which I feel like they would have to find a network of people because this is some type of conspiracy. Like one person didn't do this. They're gonna have to kill whoever that person is because it looks a little too um what do you call it? It looks too, again, this is only if we're talking about a national security issue. But I digress. So let's keep going. Okay, so now let's look at this. Is no, was Nancy aware of a real or perceived threat in the days or weeks leading up to her disappearance? Was Nancy aware of a real or perceived threat? Party or event location? Oh God, this is making me think of the dinner. We have hacked security systems. Remember, they took down the camera from the roof yesterday. We have witness memory gaps. So there could be somebody who's coming forward with a statement of some sort, and or they were there and they have not recalled something. Whether that's intentionally or if it's just like a misstep, whatever. But it's something in good faith, like maybe somebody said something in good faith that the authorities took somebody's word for something. We have a covert agent present, which is interesting because in the first reading, there was a mention of a corrupt official. Everybody's been giving a lot of criticism in these little sidebars about Pima County and their inability to conduct an investigation at this magnitude. Um, Also, people were talking about him being at a basketball game and why that was a thing, or perhaps maybe even speculation of him trying to divert the person while they conduct all these other investigations and navigate between, multiple locations because they're going back and forth between Annie's house and Nancy. Okay. Now, oh my God, the last card is cryptic note or message. Okay. So we have laced drink or food here. Oh, okay. So it seems like something happened at the dinner. Okay. Let's move on. Something happened at the dinner. Nancy was aware. She could probably feel something was off. Okay. Digital timestamps altered. Something could be going on with that security camera, or there could be some discrepancies in the timeline, or maybe what they're even telling us. I don't know. Okay. Flickering lights. That could be in reference to people's eyewitness of them seeing a blue flashing light, or somebody even mentioned something about luminol. Um, but again, there's also been a discussion talking about how this is not a full investigation, or something about the investigation not being like there wasn't a search warrant at a certain point, but there was a card that flew out before about search warrant thresholds that came out yesterday in a shuffle that I did. And I was wondering if that meant that there was a search warrant, or if that means that they don't have the jurisdiction, because again, that card came out in this reading, the jurisdiction versus federal and state. So that has probably been the reason why we haven't seen anybody arrive in full on PPE. Again, there's been mention of blue gloves and people carrying out evidence and things and papers and books and things like that, but nobody who has like full on PPE, or there's not a lot of large equipment. We're not seeing a coroner, we're not seeing like a medical assistant or anybody present. So there's also been discussions about what that might mean, that maybe she's not nearby, again, if this is a national security issue. But there could be even a situation, because also there was mention of her possibly being, trafficked at that point. Because imagine if you don't turn up um after you've been declared missing, and there is the assumption that you're dead. Let's just think about this. If she was a different age, being trafficked is like vanishing, in a crazy way, because your family doesn't get closure and all of that. And now I'm bringing that up because I'm getting these little channeled visions of certain things. So, um, let's just redirect certain things. All right. Let's redirect the question. Was there involvement from someone outside the immediate household who had prior access, maybe some familiarity or interaction with Nancy? Was there someone involved from the outside the immediate household? We have classic car from the 80s and 90s, so there could be an old car. Annie's car could also, it could be like not new. I don't know. Mood swings or hot temper. Somebody can have a mood swings, something in the last 24 hours. Um, mm, was the original intent of this situation different from how it ultimately unfolded? Because again, the card yesterday came out. Oh, too many. The card came out yesterday about kidnapping gone wrong. Um, but it can be in the reverse. Now that I'm thinking about that, it could be a death gone wrong that was morphed into being a kidnapping. Maybe that is what has been trying to get people off the trail by saying that it was, something else. That could be like the alibi of someone. All right. Do the irregularities observed at the home reflect any confusion or maybe panic or deliberate intervention after the fact? Body moved after death. I've said this already. GPS coordinates logged. Okay. So I think they're closing in on her now. Spiritual justice overrides earthly ones. So there could be something about this outcome that is unsatisfying. Okay. Is there a gap between what is privately known? Wait, did that get answered? Do the irregularities observed at the home reflect confusion or panic? Deliberate intervention after the fact. Okay, so they can maybe notice from the cameras something, or they could be looking for movement, like body movement after a perceived death. Like, are there other people walking around listening for that? If they can't see things, if there's blind spots, there's something about the afternoon heat that is significant. A lot of the streamers were talking about while they were using their phones were overheating. We have a scalpel or medical tools. Greed or financial gain could be the motive, because we already know there's a 60 million or $6 million Bitcoin request. Threats not taken seriously. Okay, so I feel like this is where it's kind of escalating, and I want to kind of close out. So let me hurry up and get through the rest of these questions, because it does feel like certain things are kicking up. We do have a deadline on top of Cash Patel coming tomorrow. The deadline is tomorrow, February 9th, which again, I think is where we're going to get confirmation or closure at 5 p.m. I do feel like whoever has Nancy, is either feeling like they're not being taken seriously. Advocacy response models. Survivor advocacy response models. So this could be survivors of this incident being the family, the Guthrie family, or this could be, by chance, Nancy surviving this situation. But there's something about it that is a model, or we've seen it before. um Money or inheritance could be significant, like her will. Somebody could have been cut out of the will. I do have a theory about the siblings, but I'll get into that in another video. We have fatal head injury. Okay. Now, did the public statements made by the family originate organically, or were they influenced by guidance, counselor, counsel or a strategist, because of course they have like hostage or negotiators who help the family to even what know what to say, because this is a delicate situation, so I'm pretty sure they know, how these things progress and what to say at the right times during a major event. Card is here, so we know that the Super Bowl is happening. All of this energy is being used to fuel all the other headlines that we're seeing and the energy of the Super Bowl closing in on the perp. I'm telling you, something is kicking up. They are closing in on the person or entities involved. There has been discussion about whether or not this is a sophisticated operation versus maybe a rookie amateur kind of night situation. Either way, it does feel like they inadequacies of um I'm so tongue tied right now. That is so weird what just happened. There was a little glitch um in me saying inadequacies of resources that are delivered to, different cases. There should be some discussion about the importance of a balanced investigation across the board. Because isn't it kind of like unfair because you have more money? You could possibly find or pay for resources within law enforcement to kind of come to a conclusion. And that could also be kind of like a diversion there now that I'm thinking about it. The speculation behind whether or not this is an inside job. Inside from whom, though? Is it within law enforcement with that corrupt official that came up? Or is it corruption because it's intentional, or is it corruption because it's incompetence involved? And then is it a family issue, inside job with like internal conflicts that's been going on for ages, and we're just now being let in on the group chat? Who knows? Okay, but um behind the scenes, is this situation being treated primarily as an active rescue or as a controlled recovery operation? I think that got confirmed by Trump. His statement while he was on Air Force One or whatever was kind of like, I feel like it was a little preemptive, or uh, just I felt like it was a little crass and uh maybe out of place for him to say that they would be coming up with solutions. At this point, it's not about, like, he kind of inferred that at this point it wasn't about finding a body. This was right before we got confirmation that we may not be looking for a body. Right after his statement, not too long after that, that's when we got the second video of Savannah looking worse than the first time and looking completely distraught in between the two siblings, like I mentioned. Okay, so this is connected to a larger piece. This card just flew out. I said, behind the scenes, is this situation being treated primarily as an active rescue or a controlled recovery operation? I feel like this card saying this is connected to a larger piece, to a larger story piece or whatever, storyline, tells me that they're trying to get the pieces together. They're trying to piece this together. Getting the pieces together and piecing it together. Okay, those are two different meanings, but they could be active simultaneously. Um, but anything else to clarify that? behind the scenes? Is the situation being treated primarily as an active rescue or as a controlled recovery? Okay, so I feel like they're trying to handle this with kid gloves, okay? Financial binding. Somebody could be in a financial bind. This could be in reference to the gambling, or that could just be confirming the rumor. Ascended Master intervenes. Okay, that's kind of like a rando card. I mean, random in this situation. Okay, so is Nancy's current or eventual location connected to familiarity and routine, or is it like some type of deviation or like concealment? So that means, are we going to find her at the house or around the neighborhood in a location that she's familiar with? Or is this going to be like about finding her in the mountains, in a dark area, something unusual? Chosen one silenced. Okay. That feels very targeted. Power over vulnerable people. Power over vulnerable people. Somebody could feel vulnerable to, maybe this family is perceived as being wealthy. Um, the full report card is here. Alibi doesn't match. And of course, we understand Savannah's wealthy. I think she's worth $40 million or $50 million, if I'm not mistaken. So, that's where we see this ransom and all of that. So, maybe this person could feel helpless or inadequate in some way. Again, that's where you could speculate the whole family blah blah blah, and that's where I feel like if they go with that storyline, we're gonna have to get someone who is maybe unalived, because that'll just make for a cleaner story. But again, that's just my personal opinion, not necessarily a part of this reading. The best friend could be significant. Best friend, I don't know. Again, best friend is our Annie, or is this in reference to one of the siblings, like them being very close? I don't know. Alibi doesn't match. Best friend's alibi doesn't match. The full report. Okay, so this I feel like is clarifying that card from before, where I said something about like a witness memory gap or something, and it being, information that they actually know the truth, but they made it seem like oh, I just forgot, or they left out information intentionally. Okay, so is the timing of discovery or disclosure being influenced by factors beyond physical location, maybe such as like coordination, readiness, or risk management? Is that why we're seeing Cash Patel? So, car with fake plates is significant, or something going on with it. Maybe it's not the person's car, somebody else used the car. False justice, someone paid off. False justice, someone paid off. This is very significant. I could be misinterpreting this, but now this could also be in reference to them being willing to pay, but someone seems to be paid off. Okay, now I'm picking up on it being again like within the law enforcement, something. Check the timeline. Again, what did I say? 8:08 today is significant. Also, I think it was 8:40. That's also very significant. Car with fake plates. 911 call outgoing. Who made the phone? Who made the 911 call? Someone in the chat, let me know who made the 911 call, because that should be significant. If it was Annie or one of them, I don't know, dual personality or hidden self. Somebody could be lying about who they really are. Somebody's also buying time. Escape from cold climates. Migration logic. Escape from cold climates. Somebody could be thinking about leaving the country. Okay. Somebody could be thinking about leaving the country. Um, so I think this is a good place for us to pause. In the next episode, I want to analyze something even more telling than the physical evidence. Let's get into the body language and just the language and communication and the buzzwords that we're hearing in this situation. There are specific buzzwords being used by the family that are not necessarily emotionally reactive. Okay. They are deliberate. We can hear the monotone, deliberate language that is telling a certain story. So if you're following this case in real time, make sure you're subscribed and notifications are on. Okay. This series is structured. I'm trying to make it as sequential as possible and time sensitive. And I also want to be clear, attention matters in cases like this. Silence is what protects systems, okay, not people. The next episode is going to be part three, but technically two, since this is a, new series that I'm doing. It's going to break down the phrases that do not belong in a typical missing persons case, okay? So, we're going to dissect that plea and why it matters more than most people are realizing right now. So, we'll continue from there. Um, what else did I wanted to say? I think that's it for now. I will see you in the next reading. I love you guys. Bye.